What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. We are here to give you guys the December fishing report for Arizona. This video, as always, is brought to you by Hatch Toyota in Show Low, Arizona. If you guys are in the market for any vehicle, especially a Toyota, make sure to give those guys a call. It's definitely worth the trip. And hey, we're here, I think it's December 15th today, and winter fishing has really set in. You know, on all of our lakes in the Phoenix area, if you're going out there trying to catch bass right now, it's winter fishing. And that's not a bad thing. You know, out of a lot of the rest of the states in the country, Arizona is one of the states that you can actually fish all winter long. But, you know, fishing is decent through the winter out here. It's not going to be as good as it is in March, April, May. And sometimes not even as good as the fall. But lately we've been having some pretty good days, and I'm trying to take advantage of it because you never know what is ahead as far as wintertime storms and stuff like that. I always tell folks, you know, I'd say overall January is the toughest month to fish here in Arizona, with February starting to improve. On normal conditions, December, you still have stable conditions. And what I mean by that is we don't have these winter storms coming in, you know, dropping a bunch of cold water, even snow up in the north part of the state that's going to end up running down into the lakes, and it's going to be a cold, muddy mess. We don't have that yet. We haven't hardly had any rain lately. You know, some of our lakes are really clear. Some of them have a little bit of dirty water just due to water movements from the dams and stuff like that. But overall, I'd say it's been a pretty decent December. Nothing crazy, but also not terrible either. I've been spending a lot of time at Roosevelt, a little time at Bartlett, a little time at Saguaro. I was going to fish Pleasant last week, but ended up going up to Roosevelt instead just because it's been good. And I've got a couple Apache trips on the radar too. So I've been mixing it up. The lakes that I haven't been fishing, I've been talking to some friends. And, you know, again, just with all the conditions and fishing situations we are seeing right now, I've leaned towards Roosevelt just because I personally have been able to go up there and catch more fish than I feel like I probably would have caught on some of the other lakes, with maybe Bartlett being the exception. That's the one that seems to still be pumping them out pretty good, with good size for Bartlett too. And we'll start with the tough fishing, the tough lakes that I think are fishing tough, and we'll work over to the good lakes as far as what we've got right now. Saguaro, you know, Saguaro is the closest lake to where I live. I love fishing there. It's got some of the biggest fish in the whole Southwest, maybe some of the whole country as far as the average size that you catch out there, and it's been really tough. You know, if you go back a month or two, there were still some fish up in that shallow grass. Guys were doing pretty well, catching them on some reaction baits, crankbaits, doing a little bit of flipping, stuff like that, and you still had the usual drop shot stuff going on. To me, that shallow bite has really slowed down a lot, and the bite overall in general has too. What happens is those fish in the fall out there that live in that shallow grass, they're really keyed in on bluegill. And whenever you're still seeing bluegill up in that grass, there are going to be big bass, and I mean big ones up there with them. But as it gets very cold, the bluegill migrate out deep, and the bass follow them. Even though there's still good grass up in the shallows, when you don't have as much food, the fish are going to follow the food. Are there still some bass up shallow out there? Absolutely. Are they hard to catch? Absolutely. It's really, really tough to go to Saguaro and catch a lot of fish right now. You know, I'd say if you go out there and you catch 2, 3, 4, 5 fish, you're doing really well, that's tough fishing, right? Your odds of going out there and catching absolutely nothing, as far as largemouth, it's pretty high. I've really been I've turned away from Saguaro for a little while, and that's typical. I do that a lot this time of year. A lot of times I'm going to kind of avoid Saguaro, maybe go for fun here and there, just to maybe try to catch a big fish. Maybe someone really wants to go out there, and I'll take a client or something out there. But usually I stay away from Saguaro this time of year. Now, if you are going to go throw big baits, they are stocking trout out there right now. They've had either 1 or 2 batches of trout already stocked. So that's neat. First time in a while we've had consistent stockings here in central Arizona, and the big bait guys are going to be happy about that. You know, I don't know how quickly those fish will get tuned back into the trout, but I promise it won't be long. And, you know, a 5+ pound fish in that lake, it's nothing for them to eat a rainbow trout. We call them vitamin T, in fact. That's going to be a thing, and I'm sure it probably already is a thing. If you like to throw big baits, it's definitely a good reason to go out there. But overall, pretty tough. Now, if I was going there and I wanted to catch bass, maybe I'd throw a big bait. maybe I'd go deep with some jigging spoons and stuff like that. That would be kind of my approach. If you really just wanted to get bit, didn't care about size, you can pick up a little jerk bait or a drop shot. And there's a lot of fish that were born this year, a lot of fish under a pound that are biting. When I say fishing's tough, I'm talking about the real quality fish that you're out there to try to catch. You know, yeah, you can go out there and catch a handful of little bitty guys, but, you know, if you go to Saguaro, you're typically looking for those 3 to 10 pound fish, and they're very stubborn right now. And Canyon's the same way. Canyon, everything I said about Saguaro, echo it to Canyon. There, you know, you could go out there and run into a couple spoonfish. You could catch a fish on a big bait. You could catch a couple on a jig, but overall, expect it to be slow, and any fish you catch is a bonus. Roosevelt, where I've been fishing a lot, it's been hit or miss, but seems like every day I can get into one good school of fish. I've been starting the mornings throwing a jerk bait like this Berkeley Stunner right here, and you know, it's been pretty good. The water's super clear out there right now. So early in the morning, you have a window to get a reaction bite. You know, when the light is still fairly low, even though it's winter time and we're looking ultimately for warmer waters. Fishing in the shade and the banks that haven't had the sun directly beating on them, I've noticed that there's more activity early if you're trying to fish shallow with a jerk bait or maybe even a crankbait or a rig or a swim bait. But as that sun gets up, if the wind dies down, which is very common to just have nice, calm, smooth, quiet days on the water this time of year here in Arizona because the weather's so good, I've had to go deep. One thing I've been doing and catching a lot of fish is the new Berkeley Power Switch. I've been throwing this thing, using my graphs, using my live scope, seeing balls of bait and fish swimming around and getting and chasing them, casting this at the fish, and then just kind of giving it kind of a pop, pause, pop, pause, pop, pop, pause. Almost like a really subtle jerk bait. Works really well. I've been catching a lot of fish on this thing. This thing weighs 3/8 of an ounce. It does get down. It gets down quick enough. And if the fish are in under 30 feet, this has been probably my best tool for catching them. If they're a little bit deeper, you got to go to something heavier, something pure lead, a jigging spoon, some type of ice jig like this. That thing gets down to them a little bit quicker. And we've actually been catching some fish down in 40 and 50 feet. And that, so a lot of the fish are deep, and when you are catching them that deep, it's really important to care about the fish. To, you know, if you're doing catch and release like most of us do, if you reel a fish up out of 40 or 50 feet, just be conscious of it. Don't reel them up too fast. And then if you do reel him up maybe too fast, or maybe he decides to swim up too fast on his own, make sure that you've got a fizzing needle handy and available, and you know how to fizz bass. There's a lot of videos on the internet about that, and I highly suggest that you learn how to do that. And, you know, you do it. If a fish isn't swimming right back down, you could save its life by fizzing it and letting it go back down. Because I'd say a good, you know, 20% of the fish you catch in 40 or 50 feet are going to need to be fizzed, even if you're letting them go right away. If you're putting them in your live well, even higher percentage. Almost all of them are going to have to be fizzed. Also been catching a couple fish on a jig. I'm just throwing a Berkeley jig with a Berkeley Chigger Craw trailer, the Max Scent. 4-inch, throwing like a 3/4 ounce, and that jig bite's only going to get better as the winter goes on. As the water gets colder, those fish really get tight to the rock, and if you can find any rock in 20 to 30 feet, you're going to be able to catch jig fish around it if you're patient and fish it slow. So the jig bite's kind of coming. It's kind of right around the corner. It's happening a little bit. I'm always excited for that. Bartlett, we've been catching some jig fish. It's kind of a mixed bag at Bartlett. You can fish slow with a jig, catch fish. You can also still throw a crankbait. This is a Berkeley Fritz side. Works really well out there, especially as the water gets colder. It's a flat-sided crankbait, so it works even better when the water is cold. Water's a little bit dirty there still, so you know, bright solid colors work really well. A spinnerbait right now, a vibrating jig, any of that stuff that's fairly bulky. You know, you can. It's not really the time to go out there and throw a spoon, or you know, I'm sure you could catch a couple on a jerk bait, but I prefer the baits that move a lot of water. Aren't such sight baits right now when I'm at Bartlett. It's good. I definitely would recommend checking it out if you're looking to catch some fish. As always. Going back, I did want to give a plug for my Anglers Happy Hour podcast, and going back to the spoon bite, I went really in detail with my co-hosts Rob and Nick on how to find those fish. Like, you know, I could talk for days about how to my theories on locating fish, especially when they're out deep, and we dove really deep into it. So if you want to if you're like, man, I've never caught them in 40, 50 feet, I don't know how to find those fish, I don't know what to do, check that out. It's the most recent video I posted before this. Actually, it was right before my boat walkthrough video. So go back 2 videos. Angler's Happy Hour podcast. I think it was called "Shirtless on a Skyscraper" was the title of that. But watch that video, and we'll talk a lot more about. We talk a lot about a lot of different things. We have fun on there, joke around, but we also talk serious fishing, and I go deep into how to find the schools of deep fish. So, anyways, moving on to Lake Pleasant. That place, you know, it's one of the better lakes to fish this time of year. A lot of people say, hey, Pleasant's a tough lake. I agree sometimes, but I really like it. This time of year, that lake is a bit of an exception as far as the techniques and stuff that you use compared to the other lakes. And you do have really, really clear water on the main lake. And you have your traditional bass that go really deep into the channels, the offshore humps, stuff like that. They live in the deep trees, on the deep rock piles, eating crawfish, and you catch them drop shotting in 20, 30, 40 feet. But that lake's really unique because the north end of the lake you've got a handful of coves that have dirty water. And the bait fish migrate back into those coves this time of year, and the bass and striper and white bass follow them. The reason that the bait migrates back there is that dirtier water warms up a lot faster. It stays warmer than the clear water, deep clear water on the main lake. So the deep clear water on the main lake, it might be like 54 degrees, and then you go at 2 o'clock in the afternoon back into one of those coves like Castle Creek, Humbug, Coles. The water could potentially be in the high 50s, maybe almost 60 degrees at times. And the bait fish love that. And it's fun because this time of year, you know, you can actually have some really good shallow activity, throwing little bitty swim baits, little crankbaits, A-rigs, jerk baits, stuff like that. A reaction bite all year long at Lake Pleasant, and it really shines right now. You can go in the morning. One little tip that I'll give you is a lot of times they bite really good in the afternoon and evening. So, you know, if you don't have anything going on in the evening, launch your boat at 1 or 2 o'clock and fish till dark. And, you know, pick one of those creeks, get into the back of it, and just stay back there. You know, it's one of those things that the fish are really schooled up. So you might fish through the whole creek and not catch anything and get into one little zone, and all the bait's there, all the fish are there, and you can catch a mixed bag of fish, which is really fun. You can catch striper, largemouth, white bass. As you're idling back into the coves, keep your eye out on your graph. A lot of times you can get into some of those bigger stripers on jigging spoons and big flutter spoons as well. So Pleasant offers some pretty good opportunities this time of year. And yeah, you know, I haven't been to the Colorado River, haven't been on Havasu, haven't been on Mojave since the U.S. Open, so I don't have a whole lot of input on that one. You know, December is a fair month on Havasu. January, again, just like a lot of the other ones, are really, really tough. But if I was fishing Havasu right now, I'd be really looking hard for the bait, trying to find the shad. If you can find the shad, you're going to be around the bass. A lot of times they'll corral those shad still this time of year, and you can catch them pretty good on different hard baits, different crankbaits, A-rig, stuff like that. But I haven't been there haven't been there at all personally, so I don't want to go any further than that and lead you down the wrong road because I could be way off with that. But yeah, anyways, that's about all I've got. Thanks again for tuning into the episode. Make sure that you check out some of my other videos. Please like this video, subscribe to the channel, drop a comment below, and we'll chat with you all in January.